Okay. Hare Krishna devotees, welcome to our Kartik month special. We will continue with the Bhagavatam chapter that we were reading, which is chapter 5, where Narada Muni comes to see Srila Vyasadeva and give him the instructions that is necessary for him to overcome the despondence that he's feeling. So the spiritual master has come, and there is a conversation that is taking place between the spiritual master and his student. Yeah. So a few weeks back, we did Shloka 6 to 13. So I'll just quickly read just to jog our memories in terms of what is it that we were reading last time, because there was a couple of weeks break in between. So I'll just quickly read 6 to 13 shlokas, and then we'll begin with 6 to 12, and then we'll begin with shloka number 13. Yeah. So here, Narada Muni is speaking to his student, Srila Vyasadeva. My Lord, everything that is mysterious is known to you because you worship the creator and destroyer of the material world and the maintainer of the spiritual world, the original personality of Godhead, who is transcendental to the three modes of material nature. My apologies, it's Srila Vyasadeva speaking to Narada Muni. Like the sun, your goodness can travel everywhere in the three worlds, and like the air, you can penetrate the internal region of everyone. As such, you are as good as the all-pervasive supersoul. Please therefore find out the deficiency in me, despite my being absorbed in transcendence under disciplinary regulations and vows. So essentially, Srila Vyasadeva is requesting Narada Muni to find out what is it that is the problem. Why is Vyasadeva feeling so despondent, even though he personally believes that he's doing everything that he should be doing as per prior instructions. But something seems amiss. So Narada Muni tells Vyasadeva, you have not actually broadcast the sublime and spotless glories of the personality of Godhead. That philosophy which does not satisfy the transcendental senses of the Lord is considered worthless. So Narada Muni comes straight to the point. No sugarcoating, no, you are the best, you are beautiful. No, straight to the point. He says, the reason, Srila Vyasadeva, that you are not feeling too good about yourself is you have not glorified the Lord. Everything that you've written has to do with material knowledge. Where is that spiritual knowledge that you have given to anyone in the Vedic scriptures? That is what is missing. And that is what you are experiencing. You are experiencing that despondency because you have not described the glories of the Supreme Lord. Although great sage, you have very broadly described the four principles, beginning with religious performances. You have not described the glories of the Supreme Personality Vasudeva. So Vyasadeva has spent enormous amount of time talking about dharma, artha, kama, moksha. But in speaking about dharma, artha, kama, moksha, there is no description of the Lord. There is no relaying to us the pastimes of the Lord. So that is what is actually missing. Those words which do not describe the glories of the Lord, who alone can sanctify the atmosphere of the whole universe, are considered by saintly persons to be like unto a place of pilgrimage for crows. So some of us gather in places where there is no speech about the Supreme Lord. There is no discussion happening about the Supreme Lord. So what does Narada Muni say such places are? Such places are pilgrimages for crows. What do crows do? Generally, crows hang around garbage bins. So those who are not talking about the Supreme Lord are actually hanging around these garbage bins like crows. Since the all-perfect persons are inhabitants of the transcendental abode, they do not derive any pleasure there. So Narada Muni is saying, for the great saints and for the devotees of the Lord, they don't care about hanging in a pub. They don't care on some social gatherings that has nothing to do with the Supreme Lord, whether it is a marriage or a function or a party or a kitty party, whatever it is, when these situations that bring a group of people together, but all they're doing is talking nonsense, that is not a place where a devotee wants to be. Because a devotee does not derive any pleasure in such gatherings. A devotee wants to go to the temple, wants to be in Zoom temple, so they can constantly hear Harikatha. So that's the difference between the devotees and the non-devotees. On the other hand, that literature, which is full of descriptions of the transcendental glories of the name, fame, form, pastimes, etc., of the unlimited Supreme Lord, is a different creation, full of transcendental words, directed toward bringing about a revolution in the impious lives of this world's misdirected civilization. Such transcendental literatures, even though imperfectly composed, are heard, sung, and accepted by purified men who are thoroughly honest. If you discuss politics, or if you discuss what's happening in your apartment complex, or what's happening in your friend circle, who did this, who did what, then such kind of conversations do not transform you spiritually. There is a word in English called titillation. This word titillation means you're just talking just for the fun of it. That's it. But there's no purpose behind talking about your neighbors, talking about people who you may not like. So there's no purpose in any of these so-called social gatherings. Whereas Narada Muni is saying, but that literature can be considered topmost, even if it is imperfect grammatically, even if it is not composed properly, as long as that literature describes the glories of the Supreme Lord, that is more than enough to purify anybody. Yes. And we stopped at Shloka. Knowledge of self-realization, even though free from all material affinity, does not look well if devoid of a concept of the infallible God. That means pursuing knowledge for the sake of knowledge without having a purpose for self-realization, without having a purpose of understanding who's the Supreme Lord, is a waste of time. What then is the use of fruitive activities which are naturally painful from the very beginning and transient by nature? Transient means temporary. If they are not utilized for the devotional service of the Lord. We have this human form for a very short period of time. Narada Muni is asking, if our life is so short, and if we spend all our life not hearing about the Lord, not worshipping the Lord, not serving the Lord and his devotees, what is the point? Especially, what is the point if you have a human life and you waste it away in some social gatherings or outings and things like that? So essentially, in the shlokas that we have read, what Narada Muni has said is he has diagnosed two problems in his disciple. The first one is that Vyasadeva has not glorified the Lord in everything that he has written or compiled so far. So that is the first defect that the spiritual master identifies in his disciple. The second defect that Narada Muni identifies in his disciple is in Shloka 9, where he says, you have overemphasized dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. You have dwelt too much of your time, energy, and attention on those four things that is not very valuable for our spiritual growth. And then in shlokas 10 and 11, Narada Muni contrasts two different types of literature. You can call it materialistic literature and transcendental literature. Materialistic literature has to do with temporary things. Somebody may be a prime minister today, two years later, it may be somebody else. And so all these changes keep happening. But transcendental literature focuses on our eternal connection with the Supreme Lord. Therefore, if we only focus on reading materialistic literature, we are missing the purpose of our life, which is to go back to Krishna. Right? So in essence, starting from the 12th shloka to the 16th shloka, 12th shloka we did a few weeks back, Narada Muni is going to emphasize that bhakti is the only valuable asset that we possess. Because that is the only asset that you will take with you from life to life. It is a permanent asset. Your karmic reactions will come and go. But bhakti is a permanent asset for you. And that's the most valuable asset. So why should we not spend time, more and more time, not just 10 minutes, not just half an hour, not just 1 hour a day? Why can't we dedicate our entire life to practicing bhakti? Because that's the only asset we're going to carry with us. That is the only asset that is going to open the doors of the spiritual world for you. So let us look at the just 4 shlokas today, 13, 14, 15, and 16, which focuses on bhakti. 12 also focuses on bhakti, but since we've completed 12, we'll begin with shloka number 13 of chapter 5 of Canto 1. Okay. Atho mahabhaga bhavan amoghadrik. Mataji, cannot hear you. Is it just me or we're not able to hear Sunirmala Mataji? Okay, let's just. Atho mahabhaga bhavan amoghadrik.
Atho mahabhaga bhavan amoghadrik.
Shuchishrava satyarato dhritavratah.
Shuchishrava satyarato dhritavratah.
Urukramasyakhila bandha muktaye.
Urukramasyakhila bandha muktaye.
Samadhinanusmaratadvicheshtitam.
Samadhinanusmaratadvicheshtitam.
Word for word meaning, translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Atho,
Atho,
therefore, Mahabhaga, highly fortunate, Bhavan, yourself, Amoghadrik, the perfect seer, Shuchi, spotless, Shravaha, famous, Satyarataha, having taken the vow of truthfulness, Dhritavrataha, fixed in spiritual qualities, Urukramasya, of the one who performs supernatural activities,
of the one who performs supernatural activities. God.
Akhila,
Akhila,
universal.
universal.
Bandha,
Bandha,
bondage.
bondage.
Muktaye,
Muktaye,
for liberation from.
for liberation from.
Samadhina,
Samadhina,
by trance.
by trance.
Anusmara,
Anusmara,
think repeatedly and then describe them.
think repeatedly and then describe them.
Tat vicheshtitam,
Tat vicheshtitam,
various pastimes of the Lord.
various pastimes of the Lord.
Translation, O Vyasadeva,
O Vyasadeva,
your vision is completely perfect.
your vision is completely perfect.
Your good fame is spotless.
Your good fame is spotless.
You are firm in vow
You are firm in vow
and situated in truthfulness.
and situated in truthfulness.
And thus you can think
And thus you can think
of the pastimes of the Lord
of the pastimes of the Lord
in trance
in trance
for the liberation of the people in general
for the liberation of the people in general
from all material bondage.
from all material bondage.
So now the spiritual master is praising his disciple. First, he came straight to the point by saying, yeah, these are the two things that you didn't do, and that is why you are feeling the way you're feeling. So now the spiritual master is saying, look, your vision is perfect. This is not going to spoil your fame because you're always fixed up in truthfulness. And now he's advising Vyasadeva, you need to start meditating on the Lord's pastimes. If you put forth the pastimes of the Lord, those who read it, who listen to these pastimes, will ultimately achieve liberation. So Prabhupada writes, people in general have a taste for literatures by instinct, which means all of us want to listen and hear. Whatever kind of literature is it, whether it is good for us or bad for us, it doesn't matter. But we all have this distinct, natural taste for hearing. They want to hear and read from the authorities something about the unknown. But their taste is exploited by unfortunate literatures which are full of subject matter for satisfaction of the material senses. You know, in the United States, if you purchase a newspaper, especially the Sunday edition, it'll have more than 100 pages. I mean, that's how much news they have that they have to cover. Of course, along with a lot of advertisements, etc. So, Prabhupada is saying the so-called leaders in society are actually misleading society by producing so much literature that has nothing to do with Krishna and the fact that you're an eternal Jivatma, eternally the servant of Krishna. So essentially, Prabhupada is saying anybody and everybody is exploiting someone else for profit. Everything is for profit. Such literatures contain different kinds of mundane poems and philosophical speculations, more or less under the influence of Maya, ending in sense gratification. So any material literature is only going to gratify your senses. It is not going to purify your consciousness. These literatures, although worthless in the true sense of the term, are variously decorated to attract the attention of the less intelligent men. But millions and millions and millions of dollars are spent in the digital publishing world, in the physical publishing world, producing literature that is of no use to us. In the sense, it dwells on the temporary. So therefore, Prabhupada is saying, many of us are being taken advantage because we're not very intelligent. We're not thinking for ourselves. We're not thinking, what is good for me? What's not good for me? I'm sure many of you who have a phone, even if you don't have a phone, have you observed people all around you? They're always busy with their phone. There is so much that just grabs their attention that two people can be sitting next to each other, but they will not be speaking to each other because there's so much that has caught their attention in that device. Thus, the attracted living entities are more and more entangled in material bondage without hope of liberation for thousands and thousands of generations. How can you begin your journey back to Krishna if you're absorbed in literature that has nothing to do with going back home? Therefore, you will get stuck in birth after birth after birth after birth. Sri Narada Rishi, being the best amongst the Vaishnavas, is compassionate towards such unfortunate victims of worthless literatures, and thus he advises Sri Vyasadeva to compose transcendental literature, which is not only attractive, but can also actually bring liberation from all kinds of bondage. So the benefit of hearing Krishna Katha is it's so attractive. One is that it is attractive. Two is that it helps you go back to the spiritual world. It frees you up from mayas. Bonds. Srila Vyasadeva or his representatives are qualified because they are rightly trained to see things in true perspective. So from a young age, they've been trained about what is important in life. Srila Vyasadeva and his representatives are pure in thought due to their spiritual enlightenment, fixed in their vows due to their devotional service, and determined to deliver the fallen souls rotting in material activities. The fallen souls are very eager to receive novel informations every day, and the transcendentalists like Vyasadeva or Narada can supply such eager people in general with unlimited news from the spiritual world. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur used to say, I can produce newsletters every single minute of the day because there is so much to say and talk about Krishna. So the news from the spiritual world is unlimited because the personality occupying the spiritual world, the Supreme Personality, is unlimited. So if Krishna is unlimited, news about him is also unlimited. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is said that the material world is only a part of the whole creation, and that this earth is only a fragment of the whole material world. There are thousands and thousands of literary men all over the world, and they have created many, many thousands of literary works for the information of the people in general for thousands and thousands of years. So how many trees are being cut down to print books that are going to be thrown in the garbage pile? You know, how many publishing houses have been set up? And the vast majority of what they publish is of no value. Somebody is scribbling on their phone. Okay. Unfortunately, none of them have brought peace and tranquility on the earth. So the more there is production of books or digital content, the less peace there seems to be on this earth. This is due to a spiritual vacuum in those literatures. Therefore, the Vedic literatures, especially the Bhagavad Gita and the Srimad Bhagavatam, are specifically recommended to suffering humanity to bring about the desired effect of liberation from the pangs of material civilization, which is eating the vital part of human energy. So if all of our energy is consumed in material activities, then we are killing ourselves. The Bhagavad Gita is the spoken message of the Lord himself, recorded by Vyasadeva. And the Srimad Bhagavatam is the transcendental narration of the activities of the same Lord Krishna, which alone can satisfy the hankering desires of the living being for eternal peace and liberation from miseries. So, the best medicine for a confused person, for a diseased person, for a person who feels that life is of no use, I want to give up, the best medicine is there in Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. Because it will satisfy all your desires. The minute your spiritual desires are satisfied, all other desires are also automatically satisfied. Srimad Bhagavatam, therefore, is meant for all the living beings all over the universe for total liberation from all kinds of material bondage. So it is not that the pastimes of the Lord are only for Hindus. Anybody and everybody can read these pastimes and become absorbed in them and become completely transformed into a new person spiritually. Such transcendental narrations of the pastimes of the Lord can be described only by liberated souls like Vyasadeva and his bona fide representatives who are completely merged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. So that means only great acharyas, pure devotees of the Lord, can actually talk about the Lord, can write about the Lord. Only to such devotees do the pastimes of the Lord and their transcendental nature become automatically manifest by dint of devotional service. No one else can either know or describe the acts of the Lord, even if they speculate on the subject for many, many years. So bottom line is, Prabhupada is explaining, there are many people who think they know about the pastimes of the Lord and end up writing literature which is actually very harmful for the Jivatma. There are many current day authors who write about Ramayana or Krishna Leela, and they write commentary without being a devotee of the Lord. That is the worst thing you could do. How can you think that you are so great, you can discuss the pastimes of the Lord and you're not even his devotee? Is that possible? So therefore, Prabhupada is saying, we should be careful. Who do we hear Harikatha from? We should hear Harikatha from somebody who is a devotee, preferably a pure devotee. No one else can either know or describe the acts of the Lord, even if they speculate on the subject for many, many years. The descriptions of the Bhagavatam are so precise and accurate that whatever has been predicted in this great literature about 5,000 years ago is now exactly happening. So the predictions for Kali Yuga actually are detailed in the 12th canto, the very last canto that focuses on Kali Yuga. We already had a taste for it in earlier chapters, where Vyasadeva is thinking, oh, Kali Yuga has started. Things are going to go down the drain, as they say. So whatever the Bhagavatam has predicted that will happen in Kali Yuga, Prabhupada is saying is already happening. Therefore, you can accept this literature as perfect and sublime. Therefore, the vision of the author comprehends past, present, and future. So the typical term that is used in Sanskrit is called Trikala Jnana. So there are certain personalities who know what happened in the past, who know what's happening in the present, and who can also see way into the future, even though they may have not lived that span of life. Such liberated persons as Vyasadeva are perfect, not only by the power of vision and wisdom, but also in the oral reception, in thinking, feeling, and all other sense activities. A liberated person possesses perfect senses, and with perfect senses only can one serve the sense proprietor Hrishikesha. Hrishikesha means the proprietor or the owner of all of our senses. Krishna owns us. So when we developed perfect senses, then we can serve the Supreme Lord. Srimad Bhagavatam, therefore, is the perfect description of the all-perfect personality of Godhead by the all-perfect personality Srila Vyasadeva, the compiler of the Vedas. So the person who is going to describe the pastimes of the Lord is perfect. The literature he writes is perfect. And of course, his focus is on the all-perfect Supreme Lord. So nothing can go wrong if you focus on the Supreme Lord. So which takes us to shloka number 14. Okay. Tatonyatha kinchana yad vivakshataha
तथोऽन्यथा किञ्चन यत् विवक्षतः
पृथग्दृशस्तत्कृत रूपनामभिः
पृथग्दृशस्तत्कृतरूपनामभिः
न कर्हिचित् क्वापि च दुःस्थिता मतिः
न कर्हिचित् क्वापि च दुःस्थिता मतिः
लभेत वाताहतनौरिवास्पदम्
लभेत वाताहतनौरिवास्पदम् ततः
from that
अन्यथा
apart kinchana something yat whatsoever
विवक्षतः
desiring to describe prithak separately drishah vision tatkrita reactionary to that rupa form namabhihi by names na karhichit never kwapi any cha and dusthita matihi oscillating mind labheta gains vata ahata troubled by the wind nauha boat iva like aspadam place translation whatever you desire to describe that is separate in vision from the Lord simply reacts with different forms names and results to agitate the mind as the wind agitates a boat which has no resting place. Okay. So Sri Vyasadeva is the editor of all descriptions of the Vedic literatures, and thus he has described transcendental realization in different ways, namely by fruitive activities, speculative knowledge, mystic power, and devotional service. Besides that, in his various Puranas, he has recommended the worship of so many demigods in different forms and names. The result is that people in general are puzzled how to fix their minds in the service of the Lord. They are always disturbed about finding the real path of self-realization. When you have so many demigods who can offer you so many different things, and you're just pulled in so many different directions, how can you fix your mind on Krishna? The result is that people in general are puzzled how to fix their minds in the service of the Lord. They are always disturbed about finding the real path of self-realization. Srila Narada Deva is stressing this particular defect in the Vedic literatures compiled by Vyasadeva. And thus he's trying to emphasize describing everything in relation with the Supreme Lord and no one else. So all of the Vedic scriptures predominantly talk about how you can gain more wealth, how you can gain fame, how you can become ultra strong. So they all focus on bodily matters, which means at the time of death, none of this is of use to you in your next life. Therefore, Narada Muni is criticizing what Srila Vyasadeva has edited or compiled. Yeah. In fact, there is nothing existent except the Lord. The Lord is manifested in different expansions. He is the root of the complete tree. He is the stomach of the complete body. So if you water the root, the rest of the plant gets nourished. If the food goes to the stomach, the rest of the body gets nourished. Pouring water on the root is the right process to water the tree, as much as feeding the stomach supplies energy to all parts of the body. Therefore, Srila Vyasadeva should not have compiled any Puranas other than the Bhagavata Purana, because a slight deviation from that may create havoc for self-realization. So Narada Muni is saying, what you ended up doing actually, because of your literature, because of your emphasis on material things, you've ended up deviating people from the right path. You've taken them away from Krishna. Imagine spiritual master telling the disciple, great job. Whatever you've written, you've successfully taken the Jivatma away from Krishna. So Prabhupada is writing, even a slight deviation from Krishna can cause such great havoc in our lives. The most defective part of worshipping demigods is that it creates a definite conception of pantheism. Pantheism means thinking there are many, many gods, I can worship whoever I want. If whoever is my Ishta Devata, I can worship. This is called pantheism, the belief that any one of the demigods will give you liberation. But that's not true. Therefore, Prabhupada says this pantheism, it's ending disastrously in many religious sects, detrimental to the progress of the principles of the Bhagavatam, which alone can give the accurate direction for self-realization in eternal relation with the personality of Godhead by devotional service and transcendental love. So when we learn to love Krishna and serve him in that mood of love, that is the only thing that is going to cure us. The example of the boat disturbed by whirling wind is suitable. So Narada Muni is saying, if people are attached to materialistic literature, it is like the boat that is not anchored. It is going to go this way once, that way once, and it's going to constantly be disturbed. That anchor is actually Krishna consciousness. Therefore, the diverted mind of the pantheist can never reach the perfection of self-realization due to the disturbed condition of the selection of object. Why is Prabhupada writing that worshipping different demigods is such a disturbance? Because you'll go to one demigod for wealth, another demigod for a nice husband, nice wife. You'll go to another demigod to, I don't know, maybe to go get a visa to go to the US. So you are being pulled in so many different directions. And you're chasing everything, thinking, oh, if I get this from this Devata, I'll be happy. If I get that from that Devata by worshipping that Devata, I'll be happy. But you'll not be happy unless you're connected to Krishna. How can you be happy? That is what Narada Muni is critiquing his disciples, saying, what you've successfully done is, you've created this this Vedic literature and presented it in such a way that they'll end up becoming atheists. They'll end up giving up the Supreme Lord. They'll not even bother searching for who is the Supreme Lord. So that is what Narada Muni is telling Vyasadeva, which brings us to Shloka 15. Yeah. Jugupsitam dharma krite nushasataha.
Jugupsitam dharma kritenushasataha.
Svabhavaraktasya mahan vyatikramaha.
Svabhavaraktasya mahan vyatikramaha.
Yadvakyato dharma iti tarastitaha.
Yadvakyato dharma iti tarasthitaha.
Namanyate tasya nivaranam janaha.
Namanyate tasya nivaranam janaha.
Okay. Jugupsitam.
Jugupsitam.
Verily condemned.
Verily condemned.
Dharma krite.
Dharma krite.
For the matter of religion.
For the matter of religion.
Anusha sataha.
Anushasataha.
Instruction.
Instruction.
Swabhavaraktasya.
Svabhavaraktasya.
Naturally inclined.
Naturally inclined.
Mahan.
Mahan.
Great.
Great.
Vyatikramaha.
Vyatikramaha.
Unreasonable.
Unreasonable.
Yad vakyataha.
Yat vakyataha.
Under whose instruction.
Under whose instruction.
Dharmaha.
Dharmaha.
Religion.
Religion.
Iti.
Iti.
It is thus.
It is thus.
Itaraha.
Itaraha.
The people in general.
The people in general.
Sthitaha.
Sthitaha.
Fixed.
Fixed.
Na.
Na.
Do not.
Do not.
Manyate.
Manyate.
Think.
Think.
Tasya.
Tasya.
Of that.
Of that.
Nirvaranam.
Nivaranam.
Prohibition.
Prohibition.
Janaha.
Janaha.
They.
They.
Translation. The people in general.
The people in general.
Are naturally inclined.
Are naturally inclined.
To enjoy.
To enjoy.
And you have encouraged them in that way.
And you have encouraged them in that way.
In the name of religion.
In the name of religion.
This is verily condemned.
This is verily condemned.
And is quite unreasonable.
And is quite unreasonable.
Because they are guided under your instructions.
Because they are guided under your instructions.
They will accept such activities.
They will accept such activities.
In the name of religion.
In the name of religion.
And will hardly care for prohibitions.
And will hardly care for prohibitions.
So, Prabhupada writes, Srila Vyasadeva's compilation of different Vedic literatures on the basis of regulated performances of fruitive activities as depicted in the Mahabharata and other literature is condemned herewith by Srila Narada. The human beings, by long material association, life after life, have a natural inclination by practice to endeavor to lord it over material energy. So Narada Muni is telling Vyasadeva, because the Jivatmas have a natural tendency to want to enjoy themselves, you have encouraged this enjoyment, this kind of temporary enjoyment. And that is where you've gone wrong. They have no sense of responsibility of human life. This human form of life is a chance to get out of the clutches of illusory matter. The Vedas are meant for going back to Godhead, going back home. To revolve in the cycle of transmigration in a series of lives numbering 84 lakh is an imprisoned life for the condemned conditioned souls. So what has Vyasadeva done? Inadvertently, by encouraging people to enjoy their senses, he has encouraged them to take birth again and again and again, and therefore transmigrate from body to body to body. The human form of life is a chance to get out of this imprisoned life. And as such, the only occupation of the human being is to re-establish his lost relationship with God. Under the circumstances, one should never be encouraged in making a plan for sense enjoyment in the name of religious functions. Such diversion of the human energy results in a misguided civilization. Srila Vyasadeva is the authority in Vedic explanations in the Mahabharata, etc. And his encouragement and sense enjoyment in some form or other is a great barrier for spiritual advancement, because the people in general will not agree to renounce material activities which hold them in material bondage. At a certain stage of human civilization, when such material activities in the name of religion, as sacrificing animals in the name of yajna, were too much rampant, the Lord incarnated himself as Buddha and decried the authority of the Vedas in order to stop animal sacrifice in the name of religion. So that means Buddha came because people started misusing the Vedic scriptures for their own personal sense gratification. And so when that degradation happened, then the Lord had to come as Buddha himself. This was foreseen by Narada, and therefore he condemned such literatures. The flesh eaters still continue to perform animal sacrifice before some demigod or goddess in the name of religion, because in some of the Vedic literatures, such regulated sacrifices are recommended. They are so recommended to discourage flesh eating, but gradually the purpose of such religious activities is forgotten and the slaughterhouse becomes prominent. So that is so true in modern day life. There are so many slaughterhouses killing animals. This is because foolish materialistic men do not care to listen to others who are actually in a position to explain the Vedic rites. In the Vedas, it is distinctly said that the perfection of life is never to be attained either by voluminous work or by accumulation of wealth or even by increasing the population, but it is so attained only by renunciation. The materialistic men do not care to listen to such injunctions. According to them, the so-called renounced order of life is meant for those who are unable to earn their livelihood because of some corporeal defects, or for persons who have failed to achieve prosperity in family life. It's an interesting facet that Prabhupada is pointing out, There are many, many people who, if they see brahmacharis and sannyasis, they believe these are all losers. They couldn't succeed in life and therefore they have given up and taken to brahmachari ashram or sannyasi ashram. So they view people who have given up everything for the benefit of society as people who have some major defects in them. That is just the way they view the world. In histories like Mahabharata, of course, there are topics on transcendental subjects along with material topics. The Bhagavad Gita is there in the Mahabharata. The whole idea of the Mahabharata culminates in the ultimate instructions of the Bhagavad Gita, that one should relinquish all other engagements and should engage oneself solely and fully in surrendering unto the lotus feet of Lord Sri Krishna. So that's what Krishna says in the middle 6 chapters of the Bhagavad Gita, that we should become his devotees, that we should learn to surrender and accept him as the Supreme God. But men with materialistic tendencies are more attracted to the politics, economics, and philanthropic activities mentioned in the Mahabharata than to the principal topic, namely the Bhagavad Gita. This compromising spirit of Vyasadeva is directly condemned by Narada, who advises him to directly proclaim that the prime necessity of human life is to realize one's eternal relation with the Lord and thus surrender unto him without delay. This is also a very interesting point that Prabhupada is making, because this is also how Prabhupada used to preach. So it's as if Narada Muni is criticizing his disciples, saying, why didn't you just come straight to the point and tell people you have to surrender to Krishna if you want to get out of this process of birth and death? So he's telling Vyasadeva, why did you write so much volumes and volumes of information? You could have just come straight to the point and told them, this is what you need to do to exit from this sinful reactions. Similarly, if you've ever heard Prabhupada's lectures, or as we are reading his purport, Prabhupada comes straight to the point. He just doesn't waste time trying to please you. He doesn't try to win you over with pleasantries before he hits you with the harsh truth. Prabhupada just hits you with the harsh truth. And that's what Narad Muni is telling Vyasadeva. Why didn't you just speak the truth right away? That would be most helpful for people, right? A patient suffering from a particular type of malady is almost always inclined to accept eatables which are forbidden for him. I'm sure most of us have this experience, when we fall sick, the doctor will say, avoid this food, that food, and that is the exact food that we will really like and we will want to have also. So the expert physician does not make any compromise with the patient by allowing him to take partially what he should not at all take. So a good doctor will really put the fear in you, saying if you do that, you're compromising your health. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is also said that a man attached to fruitive work should not be discouraged from his occupation, for gradually he may be elevated to the position of self-realization. This is sometimes applicable for those who are only dry empiric philosophers without spiritual realization. But those who are in the devotional life line need not be always so advised. So there is a gradual process by which you can come finally to the conclusion that Krishna is the Supreme Lord. Or there is a more direct process. You're hit on the head and told, Krishna is the Supreme Lord. You start chanting the holy names of the Lord. If you don't chant the holy names of the Lord, you are going to keep taking birth again and again. So there is a shortcut. And then there is the longer way that you can go. That's what Prabhupada is writing. The shortcut is to practice Bhakti Yoga, which is what we are meant to do anyway in Kali Yuga, right? So we'll cover the last shloka for today, which is shloka number 16. Okay. Vichakshanosyarhati veditam vibhoh.
Vichakshanosyarhati veditam vibhoh.
Anantaparasya nivritittas sukham.
Anantaparasya nivritittas sukham.
Pravartamanasya gunairanatmanaha.
Pravartamanasya gunairanatmanaha.
Tato bhavan darshaya cheshtitam vibhoh.
Tato bhavan darshaya cheshtitam vibhoh.
Okay. Vichakshanaha.
Vichakshanaha.
Very expert.
Very expert.
Asya.
Asya.
Of him.
Of him.
Arhati.
Arhati.
Deserves.
Deserves.
Veditum.
Veditum.
To understand.
To understand.
Vibhoh.
Vibhoh.
Of the Lord.
Of the Lord.
Anantaparasya.
Anantaparasya.
Of the unlimited.
Of the unlimited.
Nivritittaha.
Nivrititaha.
Retired from.
Retired from.
Sukham.
Sukham.
Material happiness.
Material happiness.
Pravartamanasya.
Pravartamanasya.
Those who are attached to.
Those who are attached to.
Gunaihi.
Gunaihi.
By the material qualities.
By the material qualities.
Anatmanaha.
Anatmanaha.
Devoid of knowledge and spiritual value.
Devoid of knowledge in spiritual value.
Tataha.
Tataha.
Therefore.
Therefore.
Bhavan.
Bhavan.
Your goodness.
Your goodness.
Darshaya.
Darshaya.
Show the ways.
Show the ways.
Cheshtitam.
Cheshtitam.
Activities.
Activities.
Vibhoho.
Vibhoho.
Of the Lord.
Of the Lord.
Translation. The Supreme Lord is unlimited.
The Supreme Lord is unlimited.
Only a very expert personality.
Only a very expert personality.
Retired from the activities of material happiness.
Retired from the activities of material happiness.
Deserves to understand this knowledge.
Deserves to understand this knowledge.
Of spiritual values.
Of spiritual values.
Therefore.
Therefore,
those who are not so well situated
those who are not so well situated
due to material attachment
should
be shown the ways of transcendental realization by your goodness, through descriptions of the transcendental activities
of the transcendental activities
of the Supreme Lord.
of the Supreme Lord.
Okay, so this is an important shloka for us. Theological science is a difficult subject, especially when it deals with the transcendental nature of God. It is not a subject matter to be understood by persons who are too much attached to material activities. I'm sure many of you are experiencing this. As we are reading the shlokas and as we are reading the purports, some of the purports and including the shlokas are very difficult for us to understand. You know, unless somebody deciphers it for you and makes it much simpler for you to understand. Some of this is very hard to read and understand. And Prabhupada is saying that is true. Especially people who are too attached to material things, how can they concentrate and understand such transcendental literature? Only the very expert who have almost retired from materialistic activities by culture of spiritual knowledge can be admitted to the study of this great science. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is clearly stated that out of many hundreds and thousands of men, only one person deserves to enter into transcendental realization. Because the law of atrophy says that beyond a certain point, people may just give up or drop out, right? They don't have that enthusiasm and determination and patience to carry things through. And out of many thousands of such transcendently realized persons, only a few can understand the theological science specifically dealing with God as a person. Sri Vyasadeva is therefore advised by Narada to describe the science of God directly by relating his transcendental activities. Vyasadeva is himself a personality expert in this science, and he is unattached to material enjoyment. Therefore, he is the right person to describe it, and Shukadeva Goswami, the son of Vyasadeva, is the right person to receive it. Srimad Bhagavatam is the topmost theological science, and therefore it can react on the layman as medicinal doses. Because it contains the transcendental activities of the Lord, there is no difference between the Lord and the literature. There is a shloka in the Bhagavad Gita where the Lord says that which appears to be very relishable in the beginning ends up being poisonous for you. That which is not very relishable in the beginning ends up being nectar for you. So which means be careful by what you're attracted to. Externally, it may look very glossy, very glittery, very promising. It may promise a lot of happiness, maybe satisfaction, maybe feelings of success. But ultimately, it is going to be a bitter pill. Krishna actually says this in the Bhagavad Gita. That which is poisonous in the beginning ends up being good for you. That which is that appears like nectar in the beginning ends up being poisonous for you. Right? So transcendental literature is also like that. In the beginning, because we are not in a habit of listening to the pastimes of the Lord, we may have difficulty. But if we keep at it, then your jaundice is cured, then you can actually taste the sugar candy, right? Otherwise, when you are jaundiced, the sugar candy actually tastes bitter. But you have to stick with the treatment. The treatment is Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakhyam, Atmanivedanam. This is the only medicine. So Prabhupada is writing, the literature is the factual literary incarnation of the Lord. So that means the book Bhagavatam and the Lord are not different. Because every word is describing the pastimes of the Lord. So the layman can hear the narration of the activities of the Lord. Thereby, they are able to associate with the Lord and thus gradually become purified from material diseases. The expert devotees also can discover novel ways and means to convert the non-devotees in terms of particular time and circumstance, which is very true. So I just mentioned that Prabhupada would come straight to the point in all his classes, in his lectures, in his purport. Prabhupada gets straight to the point. But Prabhupada also says, an expert devotee also can discover novel ways and means to convert the non-devotees in terms of particular time and circumstance. That means, as per the situation in society, an expert devotee, a pure devotee of the Lord, will know exactly what to say, what to do, how to engage, so that even a non-devotee becomes a devotee. That comes from purity of the heart. Devotional service is dynamic activity, and the expert devotees can find out competent means to inject it into the dull brains of the materialistic population. Prabhupada was so brilliant that he engaged his young disciples in so many activities. Go publish books, go do Nagar Sankirtan, go raise funds for the temple, go worship the deities. So Prabhupada had a series of engagements that kept his disciples busy and out of trouble. That is the expertise of a pure devotee. So much so the hippies, as Prabhupada said, became happies. You know, those who were addicted to drugs, those who were doing alcohol, all kinds of nonsensical conduct, everything disappeared because Prabhupada expertly engaged them in so many services. Prabhupada would say, here's the ticket, go to London and propagate Krishna consciousness there. Go to Japan and set up Krishna consciousness there. So he kept his disciples busy in the service of Krishna. And that's how they were all transformed into great devotees. Such transcendental activities of the devotees for the service of the Lord can bring a new order of life to the foolish society of materialistic men. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his subsequent followers exhibited expert dexterity in this connection. So Prabhupada is saying our Guru Parampara, they were all experts in how to convert non-devotees into devotees. By following the same method, one can bring the materialistic men of this age of quarrel into order for peaceful life and transcendental realization. So the objective of a pure devotee is to somehow or the other engage a person who may not know anything about Krishna. Simply by engaging him in the service of Krishna, asking him to chant, doing some service, slowly that person gets attached to the service and they become a bhakta. Imagine if Prabhupada said, no, you have to study the Bhagavad Gita, you have to memorize all 700 shlokas, then only I will accept you as my disciple. No, you have to be 100% pure, then only I will give you Diksha. So Prabhupada knew that nobody is going to come into Krishna consciousness who is perfect. We are all imperfect, but we are on a journey. As Prabhupada says, some of us have a more severe infection than others. So we just have to tolerate and follow the process. If we do, then in this life, we can get out of this material world. We can end our appearance on the stage of Maya Devi in this life and exit the stage permanently and go back home permanently. Yeah, it's possible, but service is important. And engaging yourself somehow or the other in the service of the Lord is so important. And that is what Vaishnavas are trying to do all the time. We are trying to tell you, come to the temple. Help us in the gift shop. Help us make flower garlands. Help us clean the temple. Come and paint the temple. What are we trying to do? So a mundane person may think, oh, these people are just taking advantage of free labor. Is it? No, we are trying to trick you into becoming devotees. That is what is the ultimate purpose. So an expert devotee will keep bringing that non-devotee or a neophyte again and again back to the temple. An expert devotee can bring a new devotee or someone who is not sure if this is the right path for them. They can keep bringing them back to Zoom classes. Because the objective is for you to be engaged in Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam. And of course, all of the other ways in which we can serve the Lord. So many times people misunderstand and think that temple is just taking advantage of people. They don't understand the deeper and higher purpose behind it. Yes, we need help in the temple, for sure. But do you think when you do seva, Krishna is not noticing you? Because you're doing the seva for him, right? For his pleasure. You may not be thinking like that, but don't you think Krishna is noticing that you're coming to the temple regularly? You're coming for pravachan. You're coming for Bhagavatam class. Don't you think Krishna recognizes every seva that you do in the temple? So this is the expertise of senior devotees. They will keep bringing others back to the temple. Because the temple is the hospital. And if you want to get cured, you can't keep checking out of the hospital and say, one day I'll come for treatment. And then 1 week I will take leave. I'll think about it. And then you stop taking the calls, which happens to us in our experience. People don't pick up their phone if we call them. People don't respond to our message when we message them. And it can be very frustrating for us. And all we are trying to do is get them back to the temple. That is all we are trying to do. Get them back to the temple. So this is the expertise of Srila Prabhupada, that he was so brilliant in giving big goals to youngsters and telling them, go do it, Krishna will help you. You know? So Prabhupada instilled fearlessness in his disciples, that they could go out and do anything. For Krishna, they could do anything. They can become great kirtaniyas, they can become book publishers, they can become good book distributors, they can become wonderful cooks in the deity kitchen. So many different ways Prabhupada engaged them. So many different ways. But every one of them got the spiritual benefit of following Prabhupada's instruction. So the most important thing is, are you following the instructions? Yeah. Essentially, that is what Narada Muni is saying. Why don't you come straight to the point and attract people back to Krishna? Why are you misleading them by saying, if you go here, you'll get wealth. If you go there, you'll get fame. You know, if you go this direction, you will become, a very famous personality. Why are you doing that? Why can't you take a straight path and tell them this is the way to Krishna? Not maybe you go explore here, sometime you'll explore there, sometimes you'll explore here, and people will become frustrated. because they don't know what is the right path, right? So that is what Narada Muni is explaining in these shlokas from 13 to 16 or 13, 13 to 16 that we covered today, that ultimately for all Jivatmas, Bhakti is the only asset. So I'll just conclude with some additional points on this last shloka. So I'm looking at my book, so it's not there on the screen. So there are 3 types of Bhakti that is illustrated in the upcoming verses, which we'll cover in a little bit more detail. One which is called Kevala Bhakti, which means 24/7 you are engaged in only Bhakti activities and nothing else. So Kevala Bhakti means pure Bhakti. Then in the upcoming verses, we're going to also look at what is called Pradhanya Bhakti, which means Bhakti is mixed with material desires. But eventually the material desires will go down and Bhakti will increase. So this is also called Karma Mishra Bhakti. So there is some Karma Kanda work that we're doing and some Bhakti that we're doing. So this is called the second level, it's mixed Bhakti. Then there is something called the Guna Bhava Bhakti, which is mixed Bhakti, where Bhakti is secondary, it's not primary. Okay? That means your material activities are primary and Bhakti is like a if and when you have time kind of thing. Yeah. So this is called Guna Bhava Bhakti. So this is what is coming in the upcoming shlokas, the various types of Bhakti, the progress that you make on the path of Bhakti. So thank you very much for joining us this Sunday. I apologize, I took more time than I intended. So thank you for bearing with me. Vancha kalpadarupyascha kripa sindhubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srila Gurudev ki jai. Shri Sri Gaura Nidai ki